You are spreading a lie on your toast every morning, and there is a good chance you actually prefer it. Not because it tastes better, not because it is healthier, but because you have been trained to. Right now, millions of Americans are convinced they are eating butter when they are not. And what is terrifying is not just the ingredient list, it is how effortlessly food companies fooled an entire country into accepting something fake, unnatural, and aggressively engineered as normal. This is not real butter, and once you see how it is made, you will never look at that yellow tub the same way again. Let us start with a simple experiment. Go to your fridge, open it. Look at what you think is butter. Is it in a tub? Does it spread perfectly straight out of the refrigerator? Does it say things like heart smart, cholesterol free, or made with plant oils? If yes, congratulations. You have been butter faked, because real butter does not do that. Real butter is stubborn. It is hard when cold. It tears bread if you are not patient. It does not pretend to be convenient. And that inconvenience, that is how you know it is real. So how did we end up here, where something that does not even melt like butter gets called butter, and most people cannot tell the difference? To answer that, we need to rewind about 150 years. Butter used to be one of the most valuable foods on earth. Before refrigeration, before factory farming, before industrial food systems, butter was literal wealth. Farmers churned it by hand. Families stored it in crocks. Entire economies revolved around dairy fat because it was calorie-dense, shelf-stable, and packed with energy. Then came the problem. By the mid-1800s, cities were exploding. Milk spoiled too fast. Butter couldn't keep up with demand. Napoleon III of France, yes, that man, offered a reward to anyone who could invent a cheap butter substitute for the working class and the military. That's when things got weird. The first margarine was not made from plants. It was made from beef fat, rendered, bleached, and deodorized, then whipped with milk to imitate butter. It was gray, it smelled bad, and people hated it. So government stepped in. France adopted it. Germany pushed it. And eventually, America noticed something important. Fake butter was cheap, very cheap. Fast forward to the early 1900s. Dairy farmers are furious. Margarine is undercutting butter prices, so they lobby lawmakers. And lawmakers respond with some of the strangest food laws in American history. Margarine is taxed. Margarine is restricted. In some states, margarine is banned from being dyed yellow. That's right, fake butter used to be illegal to make look like butter. Some states required margarine to be sold pink, others forced it to be white. Imagine going to the store and seeing a sad pale brick labeled butter substitute, while real butter glowed golden next to it. People knew the difference back then. And then, World War II happened. Butter was rationed. Oils were subsidized. Factories scaled up. And margarine slipped in quietly, riding the wave of modern food. By the time rationing ended, America had changed. Women were working. Convenience mattered. Refrigerators got colder. And suddenly something that stayed soft and spreadable was not suspicious anymore. It was helpful. That's when the real deception began. Here is the part most Americans have never heard. Margarine does not come from plants in any natural sense. It comes from industrial seed oils, soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil. These oils are liquid at room temperature, and on their own they look nothing like butter and behave nothing like butter. So food scientists had a problem. How do you turn clear, odorless oil into something solid, yellow, creamy, and buttery? The answer is chemistry. First, they deodorize the oil. They literally strip out the natural smell because raw seed oil smells like paint and fish. Then they refine it at extremely high temperatures, hot enough to damage the fat molecules themselves. Then comes the key step, structuring. They either partially hydrogenate the oil or use modern emulsifiers and stabilizers to force liquid fat to behave like a solid. This is how you get something that stays soft in the fridge but does not melt like butter on a hot pan. Color is added. Flavor is added. Milk solids are added. Sometimes just enough to legally whisper the word butter on the label. What you are left with is a product that looks familiar, but does not act like food your body evolved to recognize. And here's the kicker. Most people prefer it in blind tests, not because it's better, but because it's engineered to hit your tongue faster. Real butter melts around body temperature. That is why it tastes rich. That is why the flavor blooms slowly. That is why it coats your mouth instead of smacking it. Margarine melts differently. It is designed to spread flavor instantly. Salt hits first. Artificial butter flavor hits second. Your brain registers butter before your senses can object. It is fast food logic applied to fat. And food companies know something most consumers don't. Your brain confuses familiarity with quality. If you grew up with margarine, butter tastes too rich. If you grew up with tubs, sticks feel inconvenient. If something spreads easily, your brain labels it better. That is not a preference. That is conditioning. And it worked so well that by the 1990s, margarine wasn't just common, it was marketed as superior. This is where the health story enters, and everything falls apart. In the late 20th century, fat became the villain. Doctors warned about saturated fat, news headlines blamed butter for heart disease, and margarine companies saw the opportunity of a lifetime. They positioned themselves as the healthy alternative, made from plants, cholesterol-free, heart-smart. There was just one problem. To make margarine solid, manufacturers used partially hydrogenated oils. That created trans fats. And trans fats are not just bad, they are catastrophic. They raise bad cholesterol, they lower good cholesterol, they increase inflammation, they increase heart disease risk more than any other fat ever studied. For decades, Americans replaced butter, a food humans had eaten for thousands of years, with a lab-created fat that actively damaged their arteries. Doctors recommended it. Hospitals served it, schools taught it, food companies smiled all the way to the bank. By the time trans fats were finally restricted, the damage was already done. But here's the part nobody tells you. Even margarine labeled trans fat-free today is still not butter. Modern margarine did not suddenly become natural. Manufacturers just got better at hiding the process. Intrasterification, a method that rearranges fatty acids at the molecular level, replaced hydrogenation. It avoids trans fats on paper, but it still creates a fat your body has never seen before. Your metabolism notices. These fats do not break down like butter. They do not signal satiety the same way. They do not interact with hormones the same way, which is why people often use more of them. Ever notice how easy it is to spread too much margarine? How you keep going back for another swipe? That is not an accident. Butter tells your body when to stop, margarine does not. Now, let's talk about the moment this all becomes obvious. Heat. Put butter in a pan, it melts, it foams, it browns. That browning? That is flavor, that is milk solids caramelizing, that is real chemistry happening in real food. Now put margarine in a pan, it sweats, it separates, it spits water, because margarine is an emulsion of oil, water, and stabilizers held together just long enough to fool your toast. It's not meant to cook, it's meant to behave. And that difference matters more than people realize. When you cook with butter, you're using a single ingredient. When you cook with margarine, you're heating a formula, and your body reacts accordingly. So why do most Americans still choose margarine? Simple. Marketing beat memory. An entire generation forgot what butter was supposed to do. They forgot that butter stains the wrapper, that it cracks when cold, that it melts unevenly. Instead, they learned to expect softness, consistency, and shelf stability. They learned to trust labels instead of instincts. And now, when handed real butter, many people say the same thing. This tastes weird. That is not because butter changed, it is because we did. Here is the uncomfortable truth. If you cannot tell butter from margarine, it is not your fault. You were trained not to. Food companies spent billions engineering a product that behaves better on shelves, lasts longer in warehouses, and spreads more easily at breakfast. They did not need it to be better, they needed it to be convenient. And convenience always wins until you look closer. So here's how you tell the difference, instantly. Real butter has one primary ingredient: cream, maybe salt. That is it. It melts when you touch it. It browns when you cook it. It hardens in the fridge. If your butter spreads straight from the refrigerator, it is not butter. If the label says spread, blend, or made with oils, it is not butter. If it promises health benefits on the front label, it is probably compensating for something. Butter does not need a pitch. For years, people avoided butter thinking they were making a smarter choice. But when researchers actually looked at outcomes, not theories, not marketing, not ideology, they found something shocking. Butter consumption was not the villain. Ultra-processed substitutes were. People who returned to real butter often used less fat overall. They felt fuller faster. They cooked more intentionally. They stopped mindlessly spreading. Because real food slows you down, fake food speeds you up, and your body knows the difference, even if your tongue forgot. So tomorrow morning, when you reach for that yellow tub, pause. Ask yourself why it spreads so easily. Ask yourself how it is made. Ask yourself who benefits from you believing it is butter, because once you see the lie, you cannot unsee it. And suddenly, that stubborn, inconvenient stick of real butter, it starts to look a lot more honest. If you made it this far, you already know the truth. This is not real butter, and now, neither is your excuse for using it.